Welcome back to another video of Rome history.
In the shadow of Rome's golden past, as the marble of the Forum cracks under the weight of tyranny, one man dares to rise, not from the heart of power, but from its distant edge. Hispania, cold, rugged, and far from the seductions of Palatine Hill. His name is Galba, a relic of another age, a survivor of emperors mad, divine, and monstrous. He did not seek the crown. He seized the moment. He proclaimed liberty. But Rome wanted spectacle, not virtue. This is not just a story of rise and fall. This is a tragedy dressed in a toga. The first of 4 emperors, and the first to fall. I, the last Republican. Who was Galba? Servius Sulpicius Galba was born on December 24th, 3 BC, into a family so ancient that their lineage claimed descent from Jupiter himself. The Sulpicii were old-school Roman patricians, men of dignity, discipline, and public service. In his youth, Galba was known for his somber demeanor. He was not made for parties or poetry. He was made for duty. Under Tiberius, Galba's career began in the structured shadows of the imperial bureaucracy. He served as quaestor, praetor, and later proconsul of Africa. Unlike many of his contemporaries, who fed from the imperial trough, Galba refused bribes, refused flattery, and earned a reputation for being quite simply uncorruptible. It was said in whispers, mockingly by some, admiringly by others, that Galba was a man out of the Republic, trapped in an imperial farce. He had watched the parade of emperors like a stoic historian. Caligula, the mad godchild; Claudius, the puppet of freedmen; Nero, the artist of cruelty. Through it all, Galba waited, a sentinel in the provinces, a man untouched. Rome on the brink, the end of Nero. By 68 AD, the streets of Rome reeked not only of decay and smoke, but of something far worse: disillusionment. Nero's reign had sunk from extravagant theater into paranoid terror. He murdered his mother, Agrippina, out of Oedipal obsession. He forced Seneca, his tutor, to die with Roman dignity, slitting his veins in a warm bath. When Rome burned, Nero blamed the Christians, feeding them to lions as the people watched like it was a circus. His debaucheries became lawless, his taxes unbearable. Even his songs, performed on imperial stages, were mandatory listening. The joke went, better deaf than under Nero. The final revolt came not from Rome, but from Gaul. Gaius Julius Vindex, a senator turned governor, denounced Nero. Though his army was defeated, his rebellion ignited a fire across the western provinces. And then, Hispania answered the call. There Galba stood in his military camp, flanked by veterans. He did not declare himself Caesar. He declared something far more dangerous: Libertas Restituta, the Republic restored. He raised the banner of the Senate and people of Rome, SPQR, a motto nearly forgotten under the emperor's shadows. No battle, only blood, the rise of an emperor. As Nero fled Rome dressed as a servant, begging fishermen for sanctuary, Galba advanced with his legions. He had no navy, no imperial treasury, only reputation and timing. When Nero committed suicide, helped by a freedman driving a dagger into his throat, Rome was left without an emperor for the first time in nearly a century. Galba didn't seize the throne. It was given to him, first by his troops, then by the Senate, desperate for order. On June 8, 68 AD, he was proclaimed imperator. He was 70, stooped with age, scarred by campaigns from Germania to Africa, yet he wore the purple with the soldier's stiffness. Rome, exhausted by spectacle, welcomed his arrival like a bitter pill, necessary but hardly sweet. But something else followed Galba into Rome: doubt. His rule lacked the divine aura that emperors cultivated. He had no air, no charm, and most damning of all, no money for the troops. From discipline to disaster, Galba's harsh Rome. When Galba entered Rome, he was hailed not with trumpets, but with curiosity. He was no hero returning in triumph. He was a placeholder, a gray statue, among marble gods. Yet Galba ruled as he had governed, like a general. His first act was to cut spending. He refused to honor Nero's promised donatives to the Praetorian Guard, the elite soldiers who made and unmade emperors. He slashed public distributions of grain and canceled festivals. In a city addicted to spectacle, Galba offered only sobriety. Worse still, he launched a campaign of vengeance. Anyone associated with Nero's regime, even distant allies, faced execution or exile. Roman streets, once echoing with music and scandal, now trembled under the march of guards and the silence of mourning families. Galba famously declared, "I do not buy soldiers, I make them." Noble words, But soldiers without gold are soldiers without loyalty. The legions grumbled, the Praetorians seethed, and in the forums, whispers returned. Nero gave us bread. Galba gives us chains. The people did not want a philosopher king. They wanted a savior, or at least an emperor who would feed them. The air mistake, Otho and the spark of betrayal. Galba was old, childless, and mortal. The question of succession was urgent. Rome held its breath. The obvious choice was Marcus Salvius Otho, governor of Lusitania, longtime supporter of Galba, and once a close confidant of Nero himself. Otho was cunning, charming, and popular with the Praetorians. He had even helped Galba rise. But Galba shocked the Senate and the people by choosing instead a young noble, Lucius Calpurnius Piso Licinianus. Piso was virtuous, disciplined, and utterly unknown. He had no legions, no wealth, no allies. Why did Galba choose him? Historians believe it was a gesture, an appeal to the senatorial elite, to the ideals of the Republic. But ideals don't feed armies. Gold does. Otho was not merely passed over, he was humiliated. And so, in shadows and in secret, he plotted. The Ides of January. A murder in the sacred way. It was January 15th, 69 AD. Cold winds blew over the field of Mars. Inside the Praetorian camp, Otho made his move. He promised gold, promotions, and Nero-like indulgences. The guards, angry at Galba's austerity, pledged themselves to Otho. By noon, Otho was emperor. Without the Senate, without the people, only with the Praetorians. Galba, informed of the mutiny, was advised to flee, to hide, to call for loyal legions. But the old man, stubborn as ever, chose dignity over survival. He dressed in full imperial garb, took Piso by the arm, and walked, on foot, toward the forum. He believed the people would defend him. They did not. On the Via Sacra, the sacred road of triumphs, the Praetorians approached. Galba turned to them and said, "What are you doing, comrades? I am your emperor." But Rome had changed. Honor meant nothing. One soldier lunged, others followed. Swords flashed, blood spilled. Galba fell. His head was chopped off and mounted on a spear. Paraded through the city he tried to restore. Piso fled to the temple of Vesta, sacred home of the Vestal Virgins. It was no refuge. He was dragged out and butchered. The Roman mob did not cry. They cheered. Galba in perspective. The first of the storm. Galba's death was not the end. It was the opening act. What followed would be called the Year of the Four Emperors, a period of bloodshed, betrayal, and brutal ambition. After Galba came Otho, who would soon fall to Vitellius, who would be crushed by Vespasian. Each successor promised stability. Each delivered war. Galba was not a monster. He was not a martyr. He was a man out of sync with his time, a man who believed virtue could rule an empire, a relic of the Republic wearing an imperial cloak.